everybody. You are listening to I'm Over It. My name is Atlanta DeCadenet Taylor, and this is my podcast.
So I'm so excited to have my dear friend Michael, Love Michael, on the pod today. Michael is, I guess, a magazine editor by day, but a musician and performer by all the other hours in the day.
Yeah.
So in the whole 24 hours of like a day, you're probably more a performer than anything. Because also,
I
like,
think
that doesn't
so.
even include like, that's just professional performing. Like, what about just like in general walking around? Like,
Literally.
like
And like,
yeah,
just like in looks and
yeah. You're like,
being
what about that
seen.
outfit I wore 2 days ago?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm so happy to have you on because I've wanted to have you on for ages. And you're someone that, I mean, you know this, how wonderful I think you are and what a light I think you are. So I was so happy that you agreed to do this,
It's
that I
so
was able
sweet.
to get into your schedule.
Yeah, you're so sweet. You're the best, Atlanta. Thank you for having me. It's like I've loved your podcast for a while now, been following, and I love like just all the like positive vibes that you spread and that you just keep it real and you like have guests who keep it real. Like I think that's super important in terms of like helping people feel good about themselves. So I feel really
Yeah.
grateful to be included.
Yeah. So I feel that, well, first of all, so you just put out your second song, right?
Yeah, I did.
So for those of you who might not know, Michael put out, this is now your second song. The first one was called
Rope.
Rope. That's right. Rope. And then this one was 16 Jaguars.
Six Jaguars.
Six Jaguars.
Six of them. So many, it's hard to keep up, I know.
And you know, you'd been in fashion for a really long time, but why did you decide now, hey, you know what? I mean, I've been privy to some of these conversations, but you know, why were you like, hey, I want to put this out now? I feel like even in the time that I've known you, I really watched you even just like online develop, and the way that you were using Instagram to communicate things, you started talking about things really honestly and openly. And, you know, obviously I love that. And felt like you started posting a lot about wanting things to help people and, you know, from your experience and some of the shit that you've gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put the music out. So I'm just kind of curious, like, at what point did you decide, you know what, I know you were nervous or scared or, you know, like, what's been the weirdest thing about it coming out now?
I think maybe just like kind of knowing that this is actually something I have like absolute. I think I'm like I'm a sensitive person and I'm an artist and like I just think like as those things like I sort of like there's a part of me of course that like is gonna like care like what people think, you know. But like with music it's such a completely like subjective experience. Like it's like once you make something that feels so personal to you and you like put it out, like you have absolutely no say and like how it's received or you know whether or not people are even into it. And so I think the weirdest thing has actually been that people are like even listening, like which I you know like of course like I would hope that some folks
You're
would
like,
listen. Yeah, I'm like,
yeah.
excuse me. You know, but of course I would like hope and want like some folks to listen, but just that people are listening at all is like kind of a huge thing. It's like kind of a weird like mind fuck in its own way. But then that people have like opinions and like express them. And I've heard like, you know, just I'm only like, you know, sort of two singles out and I'm like already hearing such a weird mix of things, but it all just shows like, you know, everything like from the spectrum, like, you know, negative feedback and then really positive feedback.
Right.
But it just shows me that like what I'm really stepping into like, okay, this is what it means to be an artist. Like it's sort of not within my control anymore, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I relate a lot to the concept of like, I remember when I first started putting the podcast out, and still now, you know, like it shocks me how many people listen to it. And still to this day, and I'm like, I don't understand. Like in the beginning, it was so weird, you know, like, and realizing like how many people were downloading that and hearing me in their heads, you know, and like all of that stuff. It was really weird, but it's such an amazing thing. And I remember when I first started getting feedback as well, you know, and like as much positive feedback as there was also the people who were like, oh my God, like rich girl problems, like shut up, you don't know anything, like this, that, you
Yeah.
know, of course. And, you know, it is hard to not take that stuff personally. And like I've gone through phases where I've like literally sat there and like read through the reviews of my podcast, like
Shit.
you know, and but the thing is, it's like also those people don't know me and they're stupid because I'm like, I have so many different kinds of people on my podcast that are from all different walks of life that it's just an easy name to call me. That's just like, they just have a problem with me. They're going to say that to me. I've heard it 1,000 times before. Like, yeah, I know. But I think your music and you as a person, you know, you mean a lot. You know what I mean? Your lyrics mean a lot. Like you're not singing about Red Riding Hood. You know what I mean? So it has a lot of depth to it, which I think is one of the most beautiful things. And that's why I loved that you were sort of, you know, I already knew you to talk about certain things just from Instagram. So when you had been like, oh, I'm writing music, I knew that it would be powerful just because of who you are as a person. So I'm sure a lot of people probably are really connecting to a lot of what you're saying. I'm sure the positive responses you're getting are like incredible.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's really been it's really been cool, you know, like you sort of like, I think Instagram, it's so weird because it can sort of be this like echo chamber of like, you know, just people who are like, yes, like you're the best,
Right.
you're the shit,
Yeah.
you know. But then also it's like if you are like someone like me who has like I've made my like profile public, and in some ways it's like, you know, you like if you put anything out, it allows more people kind of into that circle. So then that echo chamber becomes less about like just people who like know you and love you and support you no matter what, and then it's about like strangers, like, and so it is nice because like I do want, like, I've always viewed, you know, the idea of like just representing all the things that I represent, like as like a like queer, Black, like non-binary person, like I've always just believed that any platform like I have to use it to in some ways raise my voice about things I care about, but then also like hopefully speak up about things that I know other people struggle with in my community and like beyond. So that's super important to me. So it's really cool to know that there are people who I guess feel that translates into my music as well. And that I'm not just like kind of putting on some sort of like dog and pony show of like, you know, like it's music is something I've like worked on for like a really long time. And I've only just now gotten to a place, like I'm 31 now, and it's taken me like, I started working on songs like on my own when I was like 16. And it's taken me all that time to decide that like to have the self-worth and the esteem to sort of know that like what I had to say was valuable, and then to also believe that maybe other people would want to hear it too, and then to dare to put it out. Like that's been a long
triple
journey.
whammy.
Yeah.
Well, and that means if you're listening, good to know that it doesn't have to be too late. I also think like, but you know, like I just started actually studying for my GED, to take my GED test, right? Like with us time, I ordered a GED test, signed up for an online courses.
Holy
like
shit, congrats.
You know,
Wow.
and so it's like, hey, you know, I'm 28 and I might want to go to college one day. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do the fucking geometry right now. Like, you know, and
Yes.
it's never too late. And it was the same thing of just kind of getting to the like root of like, hey, you know, it's funny because like I used to find it was like kind of cool. Like, I don't have my high school diploma, you know, like I'm so crazy, you know. And now I'm like, wait, what if I want to go to college or, you
Mhm.
know, like, and it's like also talk about like the esteem being like, no, like I could study this, I could learn something, I could do a good job. Like, why would I not be capable of doing that? You know, like,
Yeah.
um, so I mean, I feel that,
Yeah.
but so what are the themes in your songs?
I would say, you know, like something that I'm very, very concerned with is, you know, I really want to, um, I think, you know, this first album has really been about like I understand that like my very existence like is sort of inherently political. Like I know that we live in a society that has, oh, my cat's in the background. I don't know if you can hear.
Oh,
She
hi.
like wants to be on the podcast.
She's like
She's
that.
like, meow, bitch,
Yeah.
meow. But I like, you know, I understand that like my very existence is like is just like inherently political, you know. I know that like while we've made so much progress, you know, in terms of like overall inclusivity and just sort of more and more voices who have historically been marginalized are like in the forefront. Like I think that there still is a type of systemic um, oppression that occurs, like, you know, when you have so many like layers of like, I almost feel like the more layers of representation you have, or the more
Right.
things you sort of represent that are like not straight, like
Definitely.
white male,
Yep.
you know, the more kind of stuff you have to like work
Mhm.
through in order to
What
be
why am I having a blank on that? It's like inter what are they called?
intersectionality.
Yeah, when you got a lot of different intersections going on.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
just think like, you know, being all the things I am, like I just realized that my existence is politicized whether I want it to be or not, you know. And I think this
Mm.
first album is sort of just like an introduction to like the world as I see it, like given that point of view. Um and I think I'm really interested in like unpacking things like, you know, sort of like this pressure to sort of always be sort of something for everybody, you know, to be like, you know, that's like what the first single Rope is about specifically. It's literally about just like feeling like I'm under a constant microscope or a gaze, and that gaze is like harmful, you know. And I know it's something that like a lot of like cis women face, like, you know, like the male gaze. Like I face like sort of like it's like, you know, I was talking to a friend about this the other day. It's like there have been many times where I like, let's say I'm in a professional situation with like a white person and I could be saying like sort of all of the right things, and
Mhm.
going about a challenging situation in all the right ways, and I'm like still not heard. And it's like because of like there's like a subconscious layer of like
Right.
prejudice that's just
Yeah.
there no matter what. So I'm interested in my music and like unpacking that, and I'm unpacking like class and privilege and but also like doing it in a way that's sort of like hopefully fun and accessible, but
Mhm.
it is very personal, you know, too. So it's like the personal is political, but in an album.
But that's great. I mean, you got a lot of material.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, that's like not just one album. That could be like
Yeah,
my whole
I'm like,
career.
that's your whole career. You're good.
Hmm.
I mean, you can just go by cities. You can do New York, what it's like in New York, what it's like in California, what it's like in fucking middle of nowhere.
Exactly. Like I could pull a Sufjan Stevens and have like
Yeah.
albums based on Michigan and Illinois.
I love Sufjan Stevens.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
So
He's one of
there's a pretty specific story behind Six Jaguars, right?
Yes, there is.
So will you tell us about that?
Yeah. So Six Jaguars is sort of juicy because like basically I was like
I'm gonna attach everything to the episode, and when I like put it out online and everything, like all the videos and whatnot. So it'd be nice to hear it from you.
Yay! Okay, cool. Yeah, Six Jaguars is really juicy. It's like it's about like, you know, I was like on this flight, like headed to like a social media conference of all things, like for like my day job, and I was
My day job.
yeah, and I was on my flight on a flight to Dallas, and it was like really early. It was like a 7 or 8 a.m. flight, and this like guy was sitting next to me, and next to him was was his wife. And you know, I'm not like sort of like judging them because of this, but it was like he was sort of like in my mind, if I had to kind of say that he represented any kind of stereotype, he was sort of like your typical sort of like idea of like a white businessman in a suit, but like that, you know, he had like a beer belly, and you know, he was like he kind of represented this, I think, what we sort of understand to be this gross figure of like obscene wealth, you know, in some ways. And then next to him was his wife, who sort of looked like, you know, she was all like surged up, and like, God bless if that's like what you want to do.
Yeah,
but it was like everything was plastic, like everything, you know, and she was German, and he said that he'd ordered her on the internet. So she was like a mail order bride. It was like one of those situations.
Okay.
And I was like, how did I get stuck next to these people? But I'm just like listening to them talk. And, you know, he is just going on and on. He's drinking. It's early. He's so loud. And he's just like, he and his wife are just talking about like all of the wealth that they have and the vacations that they go on and the houses they own. And, you know, I think literally that week I was reading something else about like, you know, Trump's like immigration policy, like with kids being separated at the border from their families, and how that creates a lifetime of toxic stress for kids, and, you know, how some kids still haven't been reunited with their families. And I was just, that was sort of going on for me in the background while hearing this man loudly brag about having like 6, like literally, he was like, I collect Jaguars and I have 6 of them in a townhouse, like that's sort of like in a townhouse garage near my actual house. So I was like, this is just too good to be true. I mean, it was so crazy. And it really just stuck with me. And I went to this like camp thing, like in the Poconos one weekend, and I just started like singing like, you know, Six Jaguars, and I like could not kind of let that go. And then eventually I just sat down and like started to like think about what it would be like to write a song from the perspective of like an obscenely rich person, but specifically someone who is so kind of walled off by their privilege that they can't sort of see what's going on around them, you know, like, and I think if anything, what's kind of come out of this whole thing with like the current administration, I refuse to say his name really. Oh, I think I did already, but
I don't know.
You know, God bless. But I just think like if there's anything that's come out of this, it's just that people sort of realize that there's always been this kind of disparity between the haves and the have-nots, and you know, the people who have get to have more because they take up the most space, and there's no willingness to share, you know. And that's both heartbreaking, but it's also like there's something we can do about it by continuing to sort of like shout about that inequality and give voice to it. So I wanted to do that in a song, and I wanted to do it like in a catchy, fun way. And I wanted the song to sound like kind of like glamorous and big, and like, you know, almost like if you were listening to it at first listen, you wouldn't know exactly what I was talking about. But
right.
hopefully it's layered enough where people can like unpack their own meaning.
That's always the best, though. Always,
Mm-hmm.
like, to be able to enjoy something, like, oh, it's cool, whatever. And then when you find out, like, there's some real shit behind it, you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, I'm picturing them now.
It was something
Crazy.
else. And it was like people wanted to tell them to like shut up because they were so fucking loud. It was so crazy. And it was like, but you know, they were just, it was like, wow, like it just seems like there was just no awareness of like their surroundings. And you know, also like I'll say like for my day job, like I'm a journalist as I've mentioned, and it's like I'm like a natural observer. So like I'm just taking
Yeah.
this in and I'm like, ooh, this is so ironic. And
Yeah.
yet I'm gonna use this somehow. You know, for creative material later.
Yeah. Yeah. Those early morning flights, and you never know who you're gonna get. So
Am I
rolling in from
right?
the night before, you never know who you're gonna get. Oh my God, for real.
I know.
Have you been? Are you feeling like overwhelmed by the feedback you're getting, or like? Because I know sometimes that when I put out certain episodes, or if I talk about things, and it hits with people in a certain way, that then you can get an influx of people wanting to connect or sharing their stories and any of that, and it's so beautiful, of course. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, to me, anytime that I think I'm like, when I'm like, is what I'm doing helpful to anyone? Like, am I living in this, again, like what you're talking about, like this like echo chamber of being like, well, in my little bubble, sure, people are saying thank you and this and that, but like in the real world, like, does this really have an impact? Like, am I just like in some weird mindset or whatever? And there have been many days where I've been like, I don't know if I should still be doing this. Like, the other thing I think people will assume as well, as like, even with podcasts, it's like, it's actually not that easy to do. Like, especially like in my situation where I'm like, I edit it, I mean, now thank God I have some help, but like for a while it was like recording everything, editing it, uploading it, writing the copy, everything. Cause like, I don't have any advertisers. I'm not with like, I don't have an agency or a manager, anything. And some days I just feel like, fuck it. Like, I can't, what's the point? And then like, sure enough, this like what always happened is that I leave the house and someone would come up to me on the street and be like, I love your podcast. You have no idea how much it's helped me. Like, oh my God, can I give you a hug? Like, you have no idea. Like, and then I'm like, okay, right. It's like, God putting little things in the way to be like, no, keep going,
Absolutely.
like, but I'm wondering if you've had, more people reach out, and like, how are you handling that? Because they're intimate things as well, where it's not just
completely.
like, oh my God, I cut your hair like me. It's like connecting on a deep level.
It's connecting on a yeah, because it's like it's your soul. Like, you're putting like your literal, like a piece of your soul out there, which is never easy. But I'll say that like what has been, I think there's two things that I really want to say. Like, I think one is that I think it's like, it's really it's a really amazing thing to sort of like have I think it takes a lot of courage to put yourself out there. And like, for anybody, who, whether they're listening to this or like people who listen to your show, like, I think I would just hope that people feel like encouraged to just like put themselves out there when it feels scary. Cause that's sort of like, that's like that I think like that's like where the truth is. And I think that's your most powerful tool, and like, I think that's what people connect to the most. So it's almost like, if it's scary, like, lean into it. That's sort of what I've been learning, so it's like just a beautiful, courageous, powerful thing to put yourself out there, no matter what. But then I think there's also, like, I was having this period since we've been like in quarantine, and obviously we have this backdrop of the pandemic and just the death toll and everything else that's going on, which is all very real and tragic. Um, and I've been talking to people about like, is this self-indulgent? Like, am I wrong for like wanting to like put something like this out right now? Am I wrong for wanting to put anything out? Like, will people even care? Because there's just there's so much happening. Like, what am I adding to the stream of life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you know, I read this quote, like a friend of mine sent me this quote from Toni Morrison, and I'm gonna completely butcher it, but she basically was talking about like, times like these are the times where if you have a voice, or if you're an artist, or if you're a creator or a writer or whatever your thing is, now is the time to use it, because this is the thing that will help sort of light the way, you know, for other people. And I have to believe that. Like, I just, you know, I have to believe that there's somebody, like you were saying, who is gonna connect on some level to what I'm doing. And it's sort of, if anything, it may be even selfish of me to just kind of like hold it in and not share it, especially if I feel like some kind of calling to share it for whatever reason. Cause it's like, not like, this isn't just like, for me, I don't know how you feel about this, but this doesn't just come from like some sort of selfish desire to be heard. Like, it's like,
Oh
it just
no,
does, you know, like, cause
this is
if I
not
had it my
enough.
way, I would just be in my
Yeah,
house chilling,
hiding. Yeah.
hiding. I would be in my house chilling and hiding, like, from everyone. Like, I don't want to do this, but I feel like I
Yeah.
have to. It's like it feels like a mission,
100%.
you know?
Totally relate. Yeah.
So,
Well, two things I want to say to that. One, first of all, that I really connect with you. We, you know, and I feel so inspired by you. We look completely different. We have completely different experiences in X, Y, and Z, but I've always connected with you because for whatever reason, right? So, actually, whenever I see you doing shit, I'm like, it inspires me to do things. And it's interesting because, and that's one of, you know, when we became friends, like I always would look at you from afar and be like, Michael's so beautiful, like so cool, like whatever, always. And you know, like I always just thought that you were such an incredible being. But I do think that also, you know, and obviously, you know, I'm with Dave and his brother who's A-Track, and we're all living together right now. And, you know, obviously they're both incredibly creative people. And so Dave has been putting out, he started putting songs out called Quarantunes. Have you seen them yet?
I have seen. It's
Okay.
so cool.
But it's exactly that kind of thing, right? Like, because the reality is that, like, if you knew what he was going through emotionally in his own shit, like, to then be able to put out something like that, that the reality is that he's doing that because it makes people happy. And it's the same thing, like, he is so plagued by what's happening right now. He's so fucking you know, he's an artiste as well. So he's like, you know, gutted. And, but he's doing it because it's making people so happy. And I think there's obviously, like, you're not a person who is like unaware of what's going on. I think it's one thing to go out into the world and be like, I don't care about anything, like, and I'm just gonna do me, and I'm gonna sell you shit, and I'm not gonna care about what's on the label, and I'm gonna go and like I'm gonna do all of that. Like, that's one thing. But to go into a situation like right now, knowing what you know, having all the information that we have, and still be like, you know what, I want to go and put something out that is gonna have a positive effect into the stream of life, then that's what you should be doing. What my issue is, and where that line gets drawn, is when I think that people are putting bullshit in that's going to just cause more negativity.
Yeah.
That's to me where it is. I'm like, okay, is this going to make someone feel better? Is this going to make them smile or feel safe or supported for 5 minutes? Or is it going to make them feel isolated, less than, like, you know, those are the sort of things. Even when I'm like posting things on my Instagram, I'm like, is this photo going to make someone feel XYZ?
Hmm.
You know, like I'm so hypersensitive to that. I mean, I always am, but right now I do think that, you know, that is important, but you're incapable of being like that because
Hmm.
you're too present, you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I believe the same is true about you too. Like, I just think it is important to be very thoughtful. And I think it's important to like, yeah, just remember that like, yeah, there's I think it's like this whole thing of like, I don't know, I guess like being a little bit of being like a worker among workers slash a person among persons or people, like just learning how to like be a part of the world and kind of like not assume a type of like sort of like a superiority. Like we're all part of this, like we're all like in this thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um Now I do sort of believe that like even now like you know like you know I don't, and we don't have to go too into this, but I just like knowing that like the pandemic is affecting like communities of color like sort of disproportionately, like
Yeah.
you know, compared to everyone else, like that's a whole thing that sort of suggests to me that like actually we're not all exactly in this together, at least not in the same way,
Yeah.
but we are all affected by this. And so I think it is important to be really thoughtful about like how we use social media and how we use the internet, for those of us who have platforms or people who are listening or following along, with what we choose to put out there, because you can either be you can be like kind of the turning point of I guess influence, where it's like you can either influence things like you say positively or negatively. And it's like because there is so much darkness and negativity out there, it's all about like what you choose, you know.
So what do you mean exactly with that? Like, because I mean, obviously I know that, but
Hmm.
maybe a lot of people don't know that, you know,
Yeah.
that it is affecting people of color, as you said, disproportionately and it's out of control. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah.
But so do you mean that instead of posting things of like we're all in this together, we're all in this together, do you think it's sort of like you can say that but also knowing the reality of like actually no, it is affecting people of color much more, or what do you mean exactly?
I guess I just mean like, you know, like it's I don't know, to me this might sound like a weird parallel, but it's like the difference between like um remember that video that was making the rounds of all the celebrities in their mansions singing Imagine by John Lennon? And
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh
and it
yeah,
was
that was crazy.
well intended, God bless, but like it just
Yes.
didn't, it kind of just sent the wrong because it's like, okay, well you're it's easy for you to imagine a better world from the comfort of your mansion.
100%. Yes. 100%.
You know, so to me it's like the difference between sort of like that kind of version of we're all in this together versus like having like the ability to see a picture outside of yourself, like to see a world outside of yourself, to just to know that like, for instance, like here we are like on a podcast in the comfort of our homes, and there are people who are, you know, I mean, out there like delivering food and like working in our hospitals overtime. And you know, so it's just about having, I think, a right size view of like what's really going on, and like specifically how people who are not you are being affected, especially if you have like positions of privilege or whatever. But I also think it's just, yeah, I just think that to me is like where the real humanity can show up. It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I will withhold from like going, as you said, too far into it because I kind of went on a tear about this as well recently, where I'm just like, I get it. Like your home has a backyard and a pool and multiple guest houses, and you're like, stay at home with your wine, and I'm like, dude, like, what world are you in that you think that's okay? Like
mhm.
so, but anyways, I agree with you, and that's the I agree, and it upsets me, that part too, because I'm just like, I don't understand how you can think that putting that image out into the world is like not going to have an effect on the millions of people who are following you, who are stuck in their studio apartment and like, you know, are alone for 8 weeks. Like, it's just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
However, you know, I mean, yeah, it's no, I know it's crazy. I don't know what is going to end up happening.
I don't either. I've been talking to a friend about, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, no, nothing, please.
Oh, I was talking to a friend about, like, there is sort of this idea, like, a lot of people keep talking about like a back to normal, and I'm kind of like, well, you know, I don't know if what happens next is going to be normal. Like, I don't really know, because what's happening now certainly isn't normal. And but I think there will be some kind of shift. You know, I don't think it's going to be like back to life as we knew it, but I think it's going to be it's I don't know what like a back to, like, when people say back to, I think they're talking about the past, and I'm just like, all we have now is the present, and we really don't know the future, you know? So it's almost like, if anything, it's like looking ahead, here's what could be next, but again, we just don't know. But I think it's like this is such an interesting and important time to like get really, really clear and specific, I think, on what matters most to you, and like what you think is most important. Like, and to me, it's just so abundantly clear that it's like love, like humanity, and like the ability to express oneself freely. Like, to me, those are the most important things. And it just kind of puts everything else kind of in its place, you know, when you really like can live life that way. But that's like obviously a daily practice. That's not something I'm not even gonna like, I can't even pretend to have mastered that, or, you know, like, I don't have it figured out. But, you know, I'm working that out as much as anyone else is. But I've just
I
realized that.
mean, yeah, I mean, I've realized you know, I've had the same sort of thoughts and being like, okay, I've been stripped away of a lot of these outside things that, you know, were, whether it was my nice clothes, or, you know, whatever it was that or my career, you know, the idea of like advancing in your career, or like these sort of ideas that really motivated me, I think. And I'm not that I'm like a power hungry driven person. Like, I'm not like that. But of course, a lot of my job, my work is more of it's like thinking of it being like each little thing's a stepping stones of like developing all these things to eventually get to this next point, right? Like,
Mm-hmm,
with my career, that's always, you know, what it is. And
mm-hmm,
that's been pretty much taken from me. I'm wearing the same. I actually just bought this dress because it's 90 degrees here. And I came
mm-hmm,
out with a suitcase thinking I'd be here for 3 weeks with like jeans, sweaters, and like everything.
mm-hmm,
And I've been stripped away of my social life, of everything, you know, all the stuff we've all been stripped away.
mm-hmm.
Luckily, I still have my family and I have my relationship, and I'm still surrounded by a lot of amazing people. But it's definitely made me think about, oh yeah, what's really important, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it's hard because a lot of that drive, work drive or hustle or whatever, like the New York hustle in me, like that's gone. And now I'm just like, I don't really know what to do, you
Mhm.
know? Like,
Mhm.
it's weird when it's because it's pseudo ego, but also just like pseudo desire. Like, of course, there's the like capitalist piece. Like, let's be honest. Like, I'm
Yeah.
working hard because I want to make money, because I want to be able to buy myself shit and a home and a this and a that. And like, that's why I work so hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
But
now
I think,
it's like, now that's gone. And I'm like, what's the fucking point? Why am I doing that?
yeah, well, I think it's just about, I think it could just be about like like I've been sort of like trying to reframe, like um, my idea of what it means to like work hard and like within this system, you know, because like unfortunately no new system has been invented. So right now all we've got is capitalism unless something else comes along, you know. But I do believe that maybe this whole thing is kind of like teaching people to like rethink, you know, how they perceive like work culture and sort of this idea that everything has to be about like sacrifice and like a constant striving upward climb. And like, you know, is it possible to like still kind of take care of yourself and like have the life that you want to have, but not be so like not be kind of committed to like a grind that ultimately can be emotionally, physically,
Draining, hurtful,
and
harmful.
spiritually
Yeah.
taxing? Exactly. So I think, you know, obviously no one has like a real answer to any of that yet, but I just think that like that's something that I've been thinking about for sure. So I really connect with what you're saying about that. Like I'm like in the process of just rethinking my ambition, and not to say
Yeah, that's it.
downsizing, not to say that that goes away. I think it's so good to like have a sense of like internal fire and have a desire to like achieve and to want good things for yourself. Like I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's about examining like kind of the personal cost ambition can take on somebody, and like, you know, kind of reconciling that with like whether or not, you know, you're happy. And I think really this sounds maybe a little corny and after school special, but I just, like I said earlier, it's like love and like and the ability to express yourself and humanity. Like I would also add like happiness is a part of that equation to me.
Yeah.
Like that is like what you need to do to be happy is what matters most. And for some people, I guess that is like a grind. But then I think, you know, are we just conditioned to believe that? Like where, you know, in America specifically in big cities, like we're both from New York, like are we conditioned to just accept that? Like, so I'm kind of like,
Definitely.
I'm like, maybe I can work a little
Yeah.
smarter, you know?
100%. I mean, it's also, I'm like, wow, that like hustling that I was running around doing for the last like 2 years, like buy myself this fucking coat that I love. That's not gonna have just sat in my goddamn closet all fucking the whole time, right? Like all of that like mania and like, can I buy it? Should I buy it? I want to buy myself something nice. You deserve to buy yourself something nice. You worked really hard. Like you want that. You want a big girl coat, go and buy it. And now it's just sitting there. And now I'm living off of like wearing the same fucking like set of 6 pairs of things, you know, and I'm fine.
Yeah, it is fine. Well, you know, it sounds like you're also like in the process of like thinking, like rethinking your relationship to things. Like,
100%.
you know, like I keep
100%.
thinking, like I haven't been at my apartment. I've been like at my partner's place, like in quarantine the whole time. But I keep thinking whenever I'm sort of allowed and able to go back to my place, I'm thinking about like, I think I want to get rid of like 85% of my stuff. I swear to God, like, because I've been
Not
learning.
those boots. Not those boots. I
Okay.
remember when those, those boots you were clicking and clacking around. Oh my God, that was the first time we'd really hung out for like long, and you were like, I am taking up space in these shoes. And I was like, oh my God, I love Michael.
Those boots are so loud too. Like
Those
you like
boots take up space. Like you could get rid of 10 pairs of shoes with just 2 pairs.
you're like, just don't get rid of the boots. Yeah. So maybe I'll keep a select few things.
Yeah.
But like I've just been thinking about like I just, you know, I've been learning how to live in the same. I mean, God, I've worn this t-shirt a million times. Like, it's just like I'm living in the same t-shirts and jeans. And it's like the reason why it's okay is because it has to be okay, you know? Like, it has to be
Yes.
okay now.
Yeah.
And to realize that I had like so many options for like looks is such a, that in itself is a type of privilege. So I'm just kind of like, you know, I don't know. I'm just really thinking about that. Like, really thinking about that. Like it almost feels like I know people who are like currently like relocating to like farms and like sort of living a more
Right.
monk-like life, and God bless. While I don't think that's for me particularly, I like can appreciate that desire to almost like significantly scale back and just to be like,
Wait, New
to
Yorkers that you knew that are like, they're like having like
yes,
mental like spiritual awakenings, and they're like, I'm moving to a
yes,
farm.
yes,
Wow.
yeah. I'm
Like
moving to
permanently, like giving up their apartments.
like if not permanently, then at least semi-permanently, like until we sort of know what could happen next. Like, you know, for months, you know, they're planning to be there for months. And I'm just thinking like, you know, a monk-like existence sounds kind of cool right now. But
For sure. I mean, look, I am living a very monk-esque existence. I will say right now, like I am, you know, in a house in LA, and it's like I really am can't complain on that level. But yeah, like I don't know what I'm gonna like. I don't know. Like now we're all freaked out of, you know, all the things that we love, like Dave and I love about New York, our large gatherings of people, like
mhm,
galleries, shows, like
mhm.
museums, get like all of it, walking around, like all of these things, you know, and I don't know.
Yeah, well,
It's
who knows?
interesting you say that though about me like reevaluating my relationship with things,
Mhm,
because I haven't thought about it like that, but it's very true. It's
mhm,
it's really like I am thinking so much. It's like, as silly as this may seem, right? Like I used to be the kind of person where I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna set out on this journey. I'm gonna get all of this stuff before I start, so that I have everything. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And like now, right, for this GED test, I'm doing the practice things, right? So it's like there's the math portion, social studies, English, and like science. It's crazy. And I still, because I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna see if I can stick with it. So instead of buying, you know, a fuck ton of pencils, notebooks, papers, calculators, like all this stuff, I was like, I'm gonna see if I can get through it. If I'm supposed to be doing it on the computer, if I like actually, if there's a special calculator I need, how much is it gonna cost? Would it be better for me to just use it online? Like this, that. I went and like took a notebook from my little brother, you know, who's like obviously 13. So I like have his name was written on it. And, you know, I'm using a pen. And I was just like, you know what? Let me just see if I can just like make do with this before going
mhm,
out and like buying a bunch of shit. Like, what do I really need to do this right now? You know?
exactly.
And that's a very different thing for me because I love stuff.
Yeah, I
You
do
know,
too.
even books, you know, like I guess you haven't been to my apartment, but I have a lot of books. I love books. And I was reading this one book here because again, I've been ordering like two books, you know, and then I've been reading a lot. It's been amazing. But you know, I didn't like this book. And I'm like, I don't want to fucking read this book. However, I don't have other options. So I'm gonna read the book. And I finished the book, and you know what? It was a great fucking book. By the time I
Mhm,
got through, like, you know, 2/3 of it, I was like, oh, I get it.
mhm,
But that was like a total, like, oh yeah, I don't like the level of excess in my life.
mhm,
Even the concept of like ordering food when there's plenty of food in the fridge to make something. Sure, it might be not exactly what I want.
mhm,
Maybe I'm craving something else, but
mhm,
there's all of this food available here,
mhm.
right? Like just the excess and the access to any excess and access. Like all of
Hey,
the things, you
yeah,
know, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
so unnecessary.
yeah. I'm thinking, yeah, I've been thinking more. I'm like, wow, I don't think, you know, like to live, like just to live. Like I think we have these ideas of lifestyles ingrained in us by capitalism, which again, I'm not condemning. And in fact, what I want to say about like one question I got about like Six Jaguars was that someone was like, well, are you sort of condemning wealth? Are you sort of saying that, it's
Right.
not okay to want to be rich. And I'm like, no, like I
Yeah.
grew up here. I want to be rich. I want to partake in the spoils. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like I have a version
Yeah.
of the American dream that everyone has. Like, of
Yep.
course I want to be successful, but it's just about like what I've just been kind of coming to terms with is just this idea that like to live just sort of on the most basic human level, to live, you actually don't need that much. Like you really don't. You need a little, you need food, you need shelter, you need some clothes and water, and that's kind of it. Everything else is like, you know, I'm almost like I live like in a palace, you know, compared to how so many people around the world live, you know, and that's not like a weird thing to like, I'm not trying to have a guilt trip or like an oppression Olympics kind of thing, but I just think,
I call them the privilege wars.
yeah, the privilege wars, like, I'm not here to
Literally.
but I just am saying that like on the most basic level, like to live, it doesn't require much. It really doesn't. But we're sort of told that like, you know, this will make you happy, this will make you happy, this will make you happy. And then before you know it, you've accumulated all this stuff. But again, it's just like, you know, maybe now it's just a good time to sort of rethink some of that, you know?
Yeah. Even with
And we'll,
my like financial stuff, it's interesting because like I actually it's hard it's tricky to say because a lot of people I think have opinions or like have ideas of what my like financial situation is like. But regardless,
mm,
I applied for unemployment because I'm sure a lot of people think, oh, you're fine, like this and that, or your parents, like that's not true, actually. And I don't know what I'm getting paid next, right? And I'm like, that's a lot of money to have.
mhm,
Like if I were to get unemployment, that's my rent and like a little bit of food. And like I have a partner who also like, you know, has his financial situation. And so like I'm with that, like I'd be okay. Like I don't need a whole lot more, you know?
mhm,
And like I hear a lot of, well, it's like, well, it's only this. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. I don't know like at what point. I mean, for me, I I go through, I don't know like what, well, I'm not sure what your situation is, but like me, I'll go like 2 months without making any money. And then
mhm.
it'll be like a good month where I get like a chunk of money. And then it's just like this, you know what I mean?
Oh
And
yeah, that like the gig, you're like the gig economy, basically.
yeah, exactly. Which is why now I'm like, because all those gigs have been pulled, all conversations I was having have been dropped, like everything, and
Mm,
I have no idea. But
mm,
I don't know. I'm definitely just feeling like I don't know. I'm just very, very, very grateful to have what I have. I'm just so fucking like my dad had COVID and he's fine. But for about a week it was really scary.
wow.
And you know, it wasn't like that bad, but you know, it was more this thing of it's like a variable of like you don't know what could happen. He could be fine for 4 days and then just you never know because you don't know
Mhm,
how the thing behaves, right? And like
mhm.
now that he's healthy and I'm like everyone around me is healthy and like I have food and I have a nice place to sleep.
Wow, that puts a lot of shit into perspective, I would bet.
Yeah,
Um,
it was I've never had like any health scares with him or with my mom, you know. The only one like I've never had that. So it was the
mm,
first time that I was like, oh my God, like is
mhm.
could something happen to him, you know?
Wow.
Um and it was like super freaky.
Mhm, mhm.
I mean you can imagine as well. I'm like it was horrible. But anyway, so since that it kind of has just like really just like checked me and just being like everyone is healthy in my life, you
Mhm,
know, like
mhm, mhm, mhm. Like, I'm
but
good. Yeah.
yeah, but I do the thing that is hard and what you kind of were talking about is that still finding that like fire of wanting to create and put things into the world,
Yes.
having removed the like hustle, New York hustle, capitalism, mindset of like, I gotta go. How to still maintain like, yeah, I want to work and like put things out there and better, like, and you know, but not like a crazy person. Because for me, I'm either like one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm either like, I don't give
I
a
think
shit,
that's
man.
most people.
I'm like, I'm chilling right now. You know, I'm eating 3 meals a day. I'm fucking like,
yeah, it's either that or you're like, like running around like a chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So balance, like, yeah, I mean, God, I don't know. I'm still kind of figuring that out for myself too. I just think like, I think it's like, you know, people keep saying like, this is such a great time to like learn something new or to teach yourself like a whole new skill or to take up something that you've always wanted to try. Like if you want to learn how to play an instrument, if you want to teach yourself a foreign language online, if you want to like, you know, fucking write a book, like there's just so much that you can do with this time that is somewhat of a blessing to have, because like for so many people it's like if you're sort of chasing that hamster wheel, capitalist, corporate, whatever, there's never any time to do that, you know. So I think for me it's been really like, I am so thankful that I'm so thankful that I realized I wanted to like finally make an album and like actually start putting music out and then actually start fucking doing it. Like I'm sorry, like it's like even if nobody fucking likes my album when it comes out, like I am so proud of myself just for like even doing it. Because it's like, you know, a lot of people say that they're gonna do stuff like that and then they never do. And so I just feel grateful for that ability, and the ability to be creative at this time is such a blessing. So like I'm just like, I think I'm sort of able to temper my sort of like more capitalistic ambition with just the fact that I have like a creative outlet and I have something that nourishes me in a like much deeper, more fulfilling way, you know? So I just think people have to like find whatever that is for them. You know, maybe for you, it's like the ability to have these sorts of like authentic conversations and like share them with people online. Like maybe that's part of it. Or maybe for you, you know, like Atlanta is an amazing writer, listeners. So maybe for you, it's like, you know, writing your book or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think like now is a time to do like some deep soul searching and figure out what is that thing that lights your fire outside of sort of a traditional ambition, you know, or sense of ambition. Not that that's anything wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong, like I said, with wanting to be successful or good at what you do or even the best at what you do. But it's just like, but like what else? Like, you know, what else is there? Like if that goes away, like what else can you rely on?
Totally. Okay, well, before we wrap, I want to ask you just one thing.
Okay.
So what would be your sort of like overall parting words or message to people out there who maybe are struggling right now? Because you're so good at stuff like that, and you have a way. I'm just wondering what you would say to people who are maybe having a hard time right now.
I think like connection is like sort of the most important tool that we have right now. It's like probably a combination of connection and self-care, but I think a lot of people care for themselves by connecting with other people. So I just think like however you can do that, like to stay connected, to like, you know, check on, you know, if you're close with your family, check on them, you know, check on people in your social circles, whether that's, your colleagues and or your friends, or like your fucking like knitting group or book club or whatever, um, like like offer offer like the ability to like listen to other people. It, like, for me, doing that really helps me get out of my own spirals, so like I think it's so good to just call someone up and just like let them have the floor, if you're able to do that. um and I think it's like this is a time really to just like have each other's backs as like much as possible, like be realistic about the world we live in, but also just like support each other,
Mm.
I think if you have the means and the ability to like say donate to like, you know, services or organizations that like support essential workers, like to please do that. Um, because I think that support is greatly needed. Um, but there are a million ways to connect, and I just say find the one that like suits you best and like hold on to it, because it is sort of like it's the only way I think we'll all like really get through this. And to yeah, I mean we're not alone. We're alone, like alone but together, like that concert.
True though.
Together at home.
Together at home, together alone but together, right? That's what it is.
Yeah, something
Oh
like
my
that. The Gaga.
god.
Did you watch that, by the way?
No. Oh, wait, I've seen that hashtag. It's something. It's
It
what
was
was
a
it?
it was like a concert that like
Oh, the
Gaga.
One World concert.
Yeah, yeah, I think she organized it with like Global
Yes.
Citizen and the World Health Organization. Yeah,
No,
so and
I did
like
not see it.
it was very like celebrity telecast, but it was also like, I mean, people love that shit. People love to see Paul McCartney singing Hey Jude, all these
Totally.
years later.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, well, one before you leave, can we take some screenshots?
Of course. How do I look? Do I look okay?
Well, you look stunning, actually.
Thank
This is what I was gonna. This is like, I don't know if it's the hair color matched with your skin tone, but this is a good combo, actually.
you. Like it? I think
Yeah,
this is my favorite of the experiments I've
yeah.
done with my braids so far.
Like blue is beautiful, but this is much more low key, and it really does good things for your eye color and your skin tone.
Oh, thank you. Yay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, I guess I'll just say, well, I don't know now. Zoom is so weird, but okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Atlanta. This was
I
so
love
amazing.
you so much, and
I love you
you're
so fucking much.
such a beacon of light and everything.
People can follow me on Instagram for all updates related to my music, etc. And that's Michael XO Michael. Yeah, Rope and Six Jaguars, my first two singles from my forthcoming debut album, are out now on all streaming platforms. And the album I'm planning to drop somewhere around my birthday this summer in July. So
wait, are you a Cancer?
I am a Cancer girl through and through.
Oh,
I'm on the cusp of Cancer and Leo though, so I have like some.
Oh, that's actually an incredible combo.
Yeah.
You're such a Cancer Leo cusp.
Do you see it?
That's actually a perfect way to describe you. If everyone was to say, well, how would you describe Michael? I'd say, well, they're somewhere between a Cancer and a Leo.
Yeah. It's literally true. Like I'm like I feel like I'm like full of fire, and I'm also like such a fucking like sensitive like witch. Like I don't
100%. 100%.
Be sure to share, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at I'm Over It Podcast or me at Atlanta Bean. I've also launched a Patreon if you really, really love I'm Over It. So head over to www.patreon.com/I'm Over It. Until next time.